people. Hi, very well. I'm saying hello to people who've opened their screens and their videos so that I can see I'm talking to real life people.
And thank you so much for arranging this session.
We need to thank Aisha and Girls Fly Pakistan because Aisha is the one who reached out to me for the session. And quite honestly, I am also now very excited to share my experience with all of you guys over here. So is everybody from Pakistan or do we have any international audience? Because I was also thinking in terms of the medium of communication, should I keep it bilingual or should I use English only? I don't know. Aisha, do you have any international participants in the session? Or
in the previous sessions, we never had. And in the Google Sheets, I saw the registrations mostly were Pakistani students.
Pakistanis, okay. So if there is any international friend with us, we'd like you to come forward and introduce yourself so we know that we are not just a Pakistani community, but we do have global presence over here. Again, I would request all of you guys to please open your videos so that I can see you in person. Thank you, Haja and Atya, for doing this. Hi, Haris. Assalamualaikum. How are you? Somebody has left the meeting. I mean, they got so intimidated, they just left the meeting. Main nahi kholunga screen.
Walaikum assalam. Alhamdulillah, I'm good. How are you guys?
Bilkul theek, Haris. Thank you for joining the session. Kya haal hai aapke? Where are you from?
I'm from Lahore, this me town. And thank you so much for having this session. बहुत मुश्किल हो रही थी समझने में. So I hope get some insights.
Yes, more than welcome. Thank you. I was just talking to Hadra. I was saying that we need to thank Girls Fly Pakistan for organizing this. Aisha reached out to me and then she requested me if I can have a session because I know for a fact that abhi streaming applications chal rahi hain, the applications are in process. People are actually struggling with their essays. So I thought that we thought it's high time for people to understand how does it work. So really excited. Oh, we have so many participants now. Assalamualaikum everybody who's joining us. We are going to take another 3 minutes and then we are going to start with the presentation. Assalamualaikum, Sister Ghadir, if I'm pronouncing your name right.
Yeah, it's Shaista actually. Maybe it's just the nickname.
Hi, Shaista, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for opening your videos. I am actually asking people to open their videos so that I know that I'm talking to real human beings.
Yeah.
And if I may request once again, everybody to open their screens or open their videos. Hi, Nida. How are you? Fatma Javed, I see you. Thank you for coming at the session. And if I can request you to also open your screen, please, your video. Assalamualaikum, Aisha Tanju. How are you? Energy, should we begin or should we wait for some time? Aisha, I need your guidance on that.
I guess we should start. Participants will keep on joining.
Taken.
Hello, Assalamualaikum everyone and good evening everyone. I'm Aisha Tahir Rawan, the core team member from Girls Fly Pakistan. And Girls Fly Pakistan is a global organization operating in 16 countries and we are thrilled to introduce in Pakistan too. We all alumni got placed in US for the summer exchange program. So that's how we met the CEO, Ms. Gail, and now we are inaugurating this in Pakistan. And this is the organization that works for the socio-economic upliftment of the women and provide opportunities to youth regarding scholarships and fellowships. And in the world, we are seeing paid sessions everywhere for Shivling. So within collaboration with Hafsa, we are bringing this session for free for all of you to get through the application process. And she is a Shivling scholar from 2022 to 2023, and she was placed in Cardiff University for business corporate communications. And she is currently head of corporate affairs and marketing in Pakistan Banks Association. So she is here to share insider tips that will make your scholarship application stand out. So grab a notebook, relax, and let's dive into the session. Over to you, Ms. Upsa.
So thank you everyone for such an overwhelming response. I was telling this to everybody over here that this is one of the largest audiences that I've addressed so far in any of the sessions that I've conducted previously. So thank you all for taking the time out for the session, and I hope this session is going to be productive for all of you. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to put up a presentation now. I'll take you, this is how the format will work. So I will take you through the entire presentation. If you have any questions when I'm taking you through the presentation, you can put that on the chat box that is going to be on your right. Or if you want to ask questions, I will address any of the questions after I've taken you through the entire presentation, right? So this is how it works. So let's begin. Hopefully I am audible to all of you and you can hear me loud and clear before I put up the presentation. Okay, I'm getting a lot of thumbs up. Thank you so much. Let me put the presentation right now. Okay, now. I hope all of you guys can see my screen.
Yeah,
Yes?
we can see. Yeah.
What do you see on your screen? Can you see my screen or can you see the Google Meet?
You can see the Google Meet. You will have to switch to presentation.
I understand. Okay, that's the tricky bit. Okay, so now this is basically, I can't see any of you guys because now I've put up my presentation and I can't see any of the reactions. So somebody who wants to stop me just have to say something so that I stop, right? Okay, so to begin with, the subject of my presentation is the power of manifestation. Why I have written, this sort of subject, you might be wondering. This is something that I will come back to regarding the subject of this. But most probably, most importantly, what I wanted to talk to you about is my journey from dreaming to winning a Chevening scholarship. So like Aisha has rightly already mentioned, my name is Hafsa Khatib. I am a Chevening scholar from the cohort of 2022-2023. I did my master's in International Public Relations and Global Communications Management from the School of Journalism, Media and Culture at the Cardiff University. These are the two pictures that I really wanted to show you because these are two of the first pictures that I took when I went to Cardiff. I met
Hafsa, I can't see your screen.
You can't see my screen?
No.
What about the rest of the people?
I can see your screen.
I can see.
I can see your screen. You're sharing two pictures.
Yes.
I guess there might be an internet issue on your side because the screen is presentable to everyone.
I have no such issue, but okay, fine.
You can rejoin. Maybe it will help you.
How about you reconnect and see whether you are able to see my screen? Even if you can't see my screen, you could just hear me out and I will also share the presentation later on. So if you have any questions, you might just write them down right now and then I'll address those later on.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
All right. So these are the two pictures that two of the first few pictures that I have taken. When I went to Cardiff, I met a brilliant international community of friends at Cardiff. These are all the Cardiff Chevening scholars from different countries. It had all sorts of nationalities. There were people from Iran, Palestine, Libya, Syria, Africa. There were Nigerians, you name it, and the nationalities were there. And the second picture is from my school, which is School of Journalism, Media and Culture. And these pictures are, I vividly remember these pictures because these were one of the first pictures, like I rightly mentioned, and also is because these were the beginning of an extremely incredible journey of my Chevening experience and my Chevening scholarship experience in the Cardiff University. So a lot of people have been asking me about Chevening Scholarship. How did I get it? Like, my LinkedIn is always flooded with messages like, how did you get it? It's so difficult. And how did you make the cut? It is so competitive. So all of these things are true. But, there is some method to the madness, right? And I will explain you in this presentation how to go about that Chevening Scholarship. So a little about Chevening Scholarship. It is basically a fully funded program by the UK government. It is sponsored by the UK government under its government office that's called the FCDO, which is the Foreign Commonwealth Development Office. It is for mid-career professionals. I will explain what does mid-career professionals mean in a bit. It lets you pursue your 1-year postgraduate degree in the United Kingdom of any course of your choosing that you'd like to study, right? So any course that you're looking to pursue in the UK, it'll let you study. There are more details about this Chevening Scholarship, which you can access through their website, which is www.chevening.org. Okay, one of the most pressed topics and questions that I get about the eligibility criteria. So what exactly makes you eligible for a Chevening Scholarship? There are a couple of main pointers that I'd really like to highlight, and those are: you have to be at least 18 years plus of age. So, if you're 18 and above, you're completely eligible to apply. You have to have at least 16 years of education, which will include your bachelor's or undergraduate degree. You have to be from an Chevening eligible country. Chevening currently offers scholarships to more than 160 countries. And then you have to be from one of those eligible countries. What I am going to do now, if you can see my screen, I will also keep on sharing the links where you can actually see what's happening. So this is the link to see whether yes, it's basically the link to see whether your country is eligible or not, since we're all Pakistani. So yes, Pakistan is pretty much eligible for this, right? And one important thing that I really like to address, and I get a lot of questions around it. And, there's the other day, some other guy popped up on my LinkedIn message and he said that, hey, you know how Pakistan is, the inflation and, with the economic situation of the country, I'm really looking for an escape and I'm looking for, go abroad. How about I apply for a Chevening Scholarship? And I was like, what? I just could not understand, and this is basically the approach of a lot of, or most of the people, not most of the people, but at least 65% of the people who are, who want to pursue a master's through Chevening is because they're looking for an escape from their country. But if you are that sort of an individual, the scholarship is not for you. And in fact, any of the scholarships of this nature, like Chevening, Fulbright, any of these scholarships are not for people who are looking to escape from their countries. Because what these scholarships are doing is that they make you sign a bond, which says that you have to return to your home country to serve for at least 2 years before going anywhere else around the world. But you have to come back, right? So if you're thinking that Chevening is basically your immigration passport, that's not how it works. So I'm really sorry to reveal that for people who might be a little disappointed on this, but yes, this is what it is. Okay, so eligibility criteria, we're done with that. Also, एक और चीज जो है that I really wanted to talk about is 2 years of work experience. What exactly makes up the 2 years of work experience at Chevening? It could be either through a full-time or a part-time opportunity. It could be through a volunteering opportunity. It could either be from an internship, either paid or unpaid internship. How can you calculate those 2 years of work experience is that it has to calculate up to 2,800 working hours. So if you have already started your application in that application portal, what you have to do is to insert the number of hours and insert the number of weeks within that the job description, whatever that portal is going to be. So you have to enter the number of hours and the number of weeks, and it will automatically calculate your working hours, right? And if your working hours are 2,800 and above, that means you're absolutely eligible. Just close your eyes and apply. But if your if your number of working hours is less than 2,800, so I'm, I'm sorry to break it to you, because that you're not eligible for Achievement Scholarship yet, till you complete those 28 working hours. So it's very important for you to understand how to calculate those 28 working hours. If there are any questions around working hours, can you please write them down on the chat section, and then I'll address it later. Okay. Timeline is of absolute importance. So I thought to just take out some time to make you all understand that, how does the timeline work. The applications, just by the way, if anybody does not know, the applications are open. We are moving towards the deadline, which is the 5th of November. And what happens is that after the deadline, the applications are sifted automatically against the eligibility criteria. So, whatever that I was talking about in terms of the eligibility, it is an automated process that sifts through the ineligible applications, and then the eligible applications go through the reading committee assessments, right? So the reading committee assessment starts from mid-November 24th, and it goes up till January 25, right? November 2024 to January 2025. Of course, there are hundreds and thousands of applications, so it takes them more than 2 months to be able to read through all of those contents and the application, right? Then what happens is that you start getting emails from shortlist for interviews by the mid-February 2005. And then there's one timeline that I'd really like to address. So there are different deadlines, right? So you need to understand how does this work. So the first deadline is basically to submit your application, talk about your work experience and all of that stuff, submit your passports and all the other details. This particular deadline is basically to submit the references that you might have mentioned, the name of the referees and the details. You have to submit those reference documents, upload those references by those people that you've mentioned in your application. And also, this is another deadline to produce or to upload those education documents that you've already mentioned in the application, right? So this is the deadline basically to just upload those documents, right? Then what happens is the interviews phase come, and then 26th February to 25th April, the interviews happen. From June onwards, the global results start pouring in, right? You will be getting an email, inshallah, if you make the cut, that you've been conditionally selected for Achievement Scholarship. And then you're supposed to do is to provide us with an unconditional offer deadline. So I will just take some time to make you understand that how does this process work. So Shivling is basically, it is a funding body. So you have to work separately for Shivling. And then there's a parallel process that you have to run, which is basically securing the university admission. So while you're applying for Shivling, you will also have to look up all the different courses and universities and all of that to be able to apply for those universities separately. And then later, when you get that Shivling offer, you have to provide them with the university unconditional offer that you've been applying for different universities to Shivling to be able to put them together, so that the Shivling is now going to contact your universities and say, ask them whether you've been able to give them the evidence to provide you unconditional offer, and that's how you get a Shivling scholarship and an unconditional university offer. I hope I'm making sense, but if I'm not, please, Aisha, please stop me, and if I'm not making sense. But otherwise, we'll go through this entire thing, right? And then the studies period begins from September and October onwards, right? Okay. Since I am not unable to see any of you, I am assuming that everybody's here and everybody can hear me. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, if there will be any trouble, I will inform you.
Yes, thank you so much. Acha. So currently, we've talked about the deadlines, we talk about the timelines. So currently we're here. So the deadline is 5th November. We are only 1.5 months away from the deadline. So whoever is in the process of writing their essays, fine-tuning their essays, now is the time to do it. And now is the time to really do the magic and just create really compelling essays, right? Acha. Very quickly, I think most of you who have applied for this scholarship before, they might know kya cheezein hoti hain, what sort of elements are we looking at for the Shivling application form. It is the basic information, name, gender, nationality, passport, education. You have to provide work experience. I've already talked about. You have to produce 2 reference letters. Yes, but First, one of the most important things are the Shevening essays. I mean, I get so many questions around it. How to craft those essays, how to make those essays very effective and all of that. What are those 4 essays? And trust me, if you crack the basics of those 4 essays, it'll be very easy for you to crack the Shevening scholarship, right? These 4 essays are the leadership and influencing essay, the networking essay, the study in the UK essay, and the post-study career plan essay, right? Okay, after all of this, I know it's a very overwhelming experience because when I was applying for Shevening for the first time, I was absolutely clueless. I did not know where to start from. So I will give you a little tips and tricks in terms of where to begin that process of applying for a Shevening scholarship. Research is key. What I mean by research is that you have to do a thorough and prior research for your university and course choices that you are going to mention in your essay number 3. You have to also research about the gap in your respective country in the field of study that you want to pursue in the UK. You also have to research about the global trends in the field of your study. And you also have to research about how all of these elements that you've researched about can you basically to put all of these things in a single solid narrative to have a very solid application. If you do not do your research, your foundation of the application is going to be absolutely weak, and it's highly likely that you won't be able to get selected for Shevening. So research is the key to get the scholarship and to have those very solid building blocks for your application. What are the 4 Shevening essays? Leadership and influencing. What you have to do is to basically effectively demonstrate your leadership and influencing qualities through evidence-based examples. I'm going to come to that also when I say evidence-based example, but I'm just going to run you through the type of essays that we're looking at for the application, right? The networking essay. Networking essay is basically how will you effectively demonstrate your networking skills through evidence-based examples. Study in the UK, where you have to elaborate on the 3 universities and those particular course choices that you are looking to apply for within those universities and mentioning in the Shevening essays, right? And the 4th essay is going to be the post-study career plan, where you are going to elaborate about your career plan after you've pursued your master's and after you come back to your country to serve and from the UK, right? Another thing very important, Hafsa, how do we make our essays impactful? I've been trying, but somewhere along the lines go really wrong and I'm not able to make an impactful essay. What makes an impactful essay? Powerful narration and storytelling. I've been telling these people time and again that it is very important to have a very coherent narrative across your essays. So, it has to have a middle, it has to have a beginning, it has to have a middle, it has to have an end. Whatever you start off with the beginning, you have to close it down towards the end, right? I will explain later on what do I mean by that. Be specific while narrating examples. I get a lot of essays to review where people are just using flowery language, like, all sorts of really out of the world grammar and all that. We don't need that, right? Just basic right grammar. And we don't need to have superfluous sentences. Just you have to be very specific in terms of why are you writing this. For instance, if you're writing a sentence, you need to ask yourself and critically analyze why are you even writing that sentence. So it has to be extremely specific. You have to show impact by numbers, statistics, and percentages to give and I tell you, to give a better perspective to the reader. So for instance, if I am an assessor, if I am from one of the members of the reading committee, I need to understand the background, right? And I will only be able to read through what you've said if I had a number before and what sort of impact did you make to produce those results of the after numbers, right? And the impact you'll only be able to elaborate or show or illustrate is going to be through numbers, statistics, and percentages. This is the key, guys, I'm telling you. And one of the star method, right? One of the stars of basically putting all of these elements together in an essay is the star method. I will talk about the star method in detail later on. Okay. So very quickly, let me take you through the structure of the leadership essays, right? So you have a word limit of 500 words for each essay. So you have to use that very intelligently, right? You don't want to use superfluent sentences and all of that stuff. Opening, it has to have an opening that says, in 1 or 2 sentences, you have to talk about your leadership skill and how you're determined to continue to lead by example even after achieving scholarship. Then the middle, you have to provide evidence-based example using the STAR approach. I will come to that in the latter part of the presentation. The closing, like I said, whatever that you've started off, you have to have a closing of that. So for the reader to make sense of what you're saying, you have to summarize that entire thing with a closing statement that reiterates your commitment to make a positive change and how the scholarship will help you lead that change, right? The second one is exactly the same structure. So if you get the method to the madness, it's very easy. And I will actually help you explain how to go about this process. The networking essay is exactly the same. Introduction, 1 to 2 sentences about how you believe networking is a powerful tool towards problem solving. You need to give evidence-based example using the STAR approach. You have to give a closing to whatever that you started, summarize with a closing statement about how you will leverage your Chevening scholarship network to bring like-minded individuals to address complex situation solutions, towards a more enabled, empowered communities, right? Structure of the third essay, exactly the same pattern, but a little different this time around. Opening, elaborate on the dearth or significance of the chosen field of your study. So whatever you might want to pursue in the UK as your master's, you have to talk about the dearth or the significance in your country. And this brings me to my first part where I talked about research. And you will only be able to do that if you have done your prior and proper research about this dearth that I am addressing over here, right? The middle, you want to talk about the first preferred university and the chosen course and elaborate on its programs. What sort of modules are you are you interested to study? Exactly, you have to repeat the process for the second preferred university and the chosen course. The third, of course, is going to be, it's exactly the same pattern of the university and the chosen course. Here, I'd like to mention is that and when I say specific details, I have also done that, and it is very important for you to understand that if you can write down those modules, and even for that matter, if you can mention the professors who are teaching those modules, the reader is going to see how much research you've put in, right? So this is what I said, that you have to do your research for your university choice, for the course of university and for the university choice and the course choice is basically this, that you have to do your research very proper, thorough, and by giving them names of the modules, by giving them names of the professors, right? But you will only be able to do that if you've done your research. Again, one thing people do make a mistake is that they also talk about, I am choosing University of Manchester, its QS ranking is 5th in the world. You don't need to waste your 500 word limit on telling them about the world ranking of that university. It is their university, they know exactly where they stand in terms of ranking, right? You might as well use those words to elaborate your research and talk about what you find very interesting in those modules that you're selecting. Again, closing, talk about how this degree will help you, and help you bring the knowledge back to your country and implement it effectively. Lastly, the post-study career plan. Same pattern. Here, you are going to talk about your degree and Chevening experience that you will bring back after you've pursued your master's, and how will you implement that in your country. How will you do that? You talk about your immediate career plan. What do you want to do? In what capacity do you want to do? How will you do this? Talk about, and the immediate career plan is around somewhere 1 to 5, somewhere will fall around 1 to 5 years. The midterm career plan is somewhere would fall in 5 to 7 years. It is the same process that you repeat the same process for what you've done for the immediate career plan. And then the long-term career plan, it's the same, but this time around from the lens of a change maker. So, for instance, 10 years down the line, after you've pursued your master's, where do you see yourself? And how can you make a change in your respective communities and countries, right? 2 very important factors that I like to mention over here. These goals have to be very SMART. SMART is the abbreviation of specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. I know that's a lot of information to digest, but I'll make some sense to you. So for instance, it has to be specific and measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. What I mean by this is that, for instance, if you're doing biomedicine, for instance, from the UK university, you can't be saying in your long-term career plan that, okay, I want to go to Mars and then help the aliens address biochemistry or whatever, right? It's just, I know it's a very exaggerated example, but it has to be very realistic, right? So this is what I mean when I say it has to be SMART. Another pro tip, I think this has worked for a lot of Shivling scholars, that if you can relate your goals with the SDGs, which is the UNDP Sustainable Development Goals, I think this is the best thing you could do for your post-study career essay, right? So how can you relate? So for instance, whatever that you want to do in your field, see what the UK government is doing in your country and see how can you actually relate with those SDGs and put them together in a single narrative for your post-study career plan. That makes the narrative and that makes your post-study career essay extremely solid. Trust me on this. It is going to really help you get that scholarship. Again, closing, reiterate why the scholarship is important and why the chosen master course will help you lead the change and address the existing gaps. So whatever you're starting off, you have to close that down, right? This brings me to my third and very important thing that I'd like to address, which is the STAR method. So what is STAR? STAR is basically an abbreviation of situation, task, action, result. What you do in a situation is that you give context and background. What was the task at hand that you described? What action did you take? And what was the result of that action, right? I know it's a little dicey. I know that you haven't understood. So here's a very basic example of STAR that I've put for you. It's very basic. It's just to help you understand how does STAR work. A school noticed a decline in reading proficiency among elementary students. What is this? A situation that you've just described. I was responsible for developing a reading improvement program. This was the task that you have just described in the STAR approach. I launched a reading challenge that involved parents and set up a library system with diverse reading materials. This is the action that you took in that STAR method. And due to my efforts, reading proficiency scores improved by 15% and the student enthusiasm for reading increased. This is the result that you've talked about. This is basically the example of STAR. This is very basic. Of course, you can't give them 4 lines and say, okay, Acha, this is my evidence-based example, and that's about it. No, this does not work like this at Shivling. I have given, for the same example, I've given a very structured way to write about STAR, right? How do you do? How to make the STAR more impactful? Our elementary, I'm just going to read it out so you can read it with me or just, listen to how I structured the STAR method. Our elementary school was facing a significant challenge with declining reading proficiency affecting over 300 students. Remember when I said you have to be impactful, you have to give context to the reading committee? This is what you're doing. You're giving them context in terms of numbers. This was the situation that you just described. I was tasked with developing an effective reading improvement program to reverse the downward trend and enhance literacy skills across all grade levels. This is exactly the task that you were supposed to do, and this is what you've described. Now comes the interesting part. The action. Now see, the different actions that have been elaborated over here. To address this, I initiated a multifaceted reading challenge and engaged over 200 parents through targeted workshops and regular communication, ensuring their active participation in their children's literacy development. This is action 1 that you took. Simultaneously, I spearheaded the creation of a library system. I reached out to multiple book donors by asking them to donate value-added books for children across various genres and reading levels. This is action 2 you took, right? Moreover, I coordinated with teachers to integrate these resources into daily curricula and arranged regular reading sessions by helping them initiate storytelling sessions and book fairs to cultivate a vibrant reading culture. This is the action 3 you took in the STAR approach. Now let's talk about results. My initiative led me to a remarkable 15% improvement in reading proficiency scores within just one academic year. This is result number 1 that you've achieved from your action. My efforts led to a functional library with over 1,000 donated books. This is this is result number 2 that was a repercussion of the action that you took. Additionally, now, result number 3, the renewed interest in reading was evident as student participation in reading activities increased by 40%, and the library circulation doubled, demonstrating a heightened engagement among students. These are 3 results that you're producing. So I know it's a little overwhelming, but just see the method. I hope you can see the method to this madness. This is very easy. All you have to do is to put your examples through the STAR method, and everything is going to fall through. Trust me on that. So I hope I made sense, through the STAR method. I will share this presentation for you to take a look at and to just understand the concept of STAR. But I think I've elaborated it well. Okay, so now moving on. Acha, another thing that I also wanted to talk to you about, this particular thing that you're seeing from STAR, it comprises of 160 to 170 words, this entire thing, right? So I want to talk about the 500 word limit. So if you are able to produce this much into 160 to 170 words, this is your one evidence-based example that you've just given. If you can reiterate the process for another example, that will add up to roughly 380 words. I'm not good with math. I'm just giving you a rough number. 380 words, you can give evidence-based example through STAR, and the rest of the remaining maybe 180 to 200 words you can use to give your opening and a very solid closing to your essays. So, this is how you want to structure your essays. So I'm giving you the word count, the magic of the word count and the trick of the word count. This is how you want to put your essays within that STAR approach, and how to approach those within that 500 word count limit. Where to use STAR? This is another thing. People usually say that STAR is only used for leadership and networking essays, but I hate to break that, but this is not how it works. STAR is used for all of those essays. How it is used? There is one post that I have posted on LinkedIn, how to use the STAR method while writing Shevening essays. And if I can just quickly give you the link to that, I think that will also help you guys understand, because in the interest of time, I would not be able to elaborate. I will not be able to elaborate all of the STAR approach for all these essays. So you might as well just take a look at the post that I've posted for using the STAR approach for all of these 4 essays for Shevening. This is my favorite part. Some of the common myths about Shevening scholarship, and I have been through it. I could, Aisha had shared a couple of questions with me, so I was skimming through it. This will address not all, but some of the questions that I saw, right? Some greatest myths about Shevening. This is very interesting because I've been through this, right? And trust me, what not to believe when you're applying for Shevening. Shevening is only meant for civil servants and development sector professionals. This is not true, guys. I am a living example of somebody who has been through and through a corporate professional. Not through and through. I'd not be honest in terms of when I'm saying I'm through and through corporate professional. But yes, I worked for the development sector for at least a year and a half. But trust me, in my essays, I did not even mention that development sector experience, right? So I have only used my corporate sector experiences to elaborate on my essays. So please do not believe in whatever that you're hearing about Shevening. No, it's wrong. only gives scholarships to individuals who apply for STEM fields or subjects relevant to civil services development, like public policy, human development. This is all crap. Pardon my French, but yes, this is not true, because once again, I'm a living example. I pursued my international public relations and global communications management. It is not even close to any of the STEM fields, right? So no, this is all BS. Again, you have to appear for IELTS test to secure a Chevening scholarship. No, Chevening does not require an IELTS or an English proficiency test. However, where I've talked about the parallel process of applying for universities, your university admission might be dependent on the English proficiency or the IELTS score. You might have to see whether you have to have an IELTS or English proficiency test for your university, but not for Chevening, right? You have to have one unconditional offer from a university before appearing for a Chevening interview. That is also not true. They might ask you maybe whether you applied, and you can comfortably say no, you're in the process of applying, but you don't have to have an unconditional offer before you appear for an interview. This is absolutely wrong, and it does not impact your Chevening interview outcome or results. So please, to whoever is saying that, is absolutely false. Do not. However, there's one thing that I'd really like to mention, that towards when you will appear for the essay, inshallah, they will ask you if you would like to change any course that you've mentioned earlier in your essays, the 3 course choices that you've already mentioned in your essays. Do you want to change any course? So this is basically your last shot. If you are willing to change any course for any reason whatsoever, you have to prompt it to them. You have to tell them specifically that yes. So for instance, if my first choice was University of Birmingham, second was Essex, third was University of Edinburgh, but my second choice, I'm not very sure of anymore. So I have to mention that yes, for my second university choice, I chose earlier for University of Essex, I would like now LSE, this particular course, to be my second choice, right? But you have to stay within the realm of your chosen field. So for instance, if I had applied for development communications within those 3 applications, within those 3 university choices and course choices, I cannot say in my interview that I would want to do biosciences. So, it does not make any sense. So it has to be within that field that you're applying for and that you've justified in that UK, studying in the UK essays, right? There is no age limit to Chevening. If you're 18 plus years of age, you are more than welcome to apply. There is no age limit. Is Chevening worth it? A lot of people have asked me. Very quickly, just giving you why it's worth it, giving you the perspective so you know why is it worth it and why is it important for you to invest all time, effort, and energy in writing and crafting a compelling Chevening application. 60,000 applications they get, and these are average numbers. 60,000 applications they get, only 1,900 are awarded Chevening. 1,900 global scholars. This is a global acceptance rate of only 3%. I mean, this is so difficult. It is difficult than the Ivy Leagues of the world, right? Harvard, Yale, all of these people, they have a much more bigger acceptance rate than the Chevening scholarship, right? So it is that coveted a scholarship. From the Pakistani perspective, so in Pakistan, average number, like I said, 16,000 applications they receive every year. Only 50 to 55 people get selected. This is a nice picture of my cohort in the 2022 scholarship. You know what the acceptance rate is in Pakistan? It is 0.3%. I know it's overwhelming, but it is absolutely worth it. So if you can make that cut, you will be just within that 0.3%. Itne se. So so it is absolutely worth it. Is Chevening worth it? This is one of the orientation sessions that I attended. Imagine you sitting here with 1,900 global scholars. It was an overwhelming feeling. It was humbling. At the same time, it was overwhelming. Imagine yourself doing that. Imagine one day you'd be sitting over there and clicking a picture like this. This is why taken this picture from a perspective, for you to give a perspective of how and why is it important, right? Is it worth it? So I've explained everything in terms of the essays and whatever, but the experiences that you get from Shivling, I got an absolute wonderful network of global scholars. I had made the most amazing times. I made the most amazing friends. You name it, and I have done it. It lets you travel across the UK. I've traveled to the Northern Ireland. I've gone to Scotland. I've traveled to different cities. I was just roaming about everywhere. Is it absolutely worth it? Yes. You've been to museums, you will go to, different milestones, you will go to different, look at different landscapes. This is just, by the way, I went to Madame Tussauds, and Justin Bieber and myself were matching that day. That's why I just put it over here. Is it worth it? Yes, I am a sucker for sunsets. So, a little bit, just want to show you the sunsets and another perspective that I want to give you. So in Pakistan, from the Pakistani perspective, you are living with your families and stuff. So it will help you rediscover yourself from a very different light. It will help you see yourself from a very different light, right? There are elements of me that I did not know even exist in me, right? And that is basically the journey of this was basically a self-discovery journey towards self-discovery for me, right? The Shivling experience. Is it worth it? I am a sucker for music, so I attended so many concerts. I went to Maroon 5, I went to Harry Styles, I went to The Weeknd, I also attended the Arctic Monkeys. Lastly, I want to share one particular moment that has been on my bucket list for so many years, but I did not know if it would come true. But have a look at this, and we'll talk about why did I want to share this. So here you go. Hopefully you are all hearing this. Can you hear this?
No.
No.
Acha.
You are on mute, Miss Afsar.
Okay, can you
I guess
hear
while
this?
you are sharing screen, like you can't share your system.
Can you hear this now?
Okay, it's
Yeah.
audible now.
Ah, perfect. Okay. So I want you to see something, and then I will.
Sorry, it's not audible again.
So basically, he stopped midway. And then the latter part, of course, I did not deliberately put it. The reason why I stopped it over here is that I want you to really experience it on your own, to live this experience on your own, and just explore everything that the Shivling Scholarship has to offer you. And the reason why I had named my presentation The Power of Manifestation is because I had manifested this scholarship for so many years, for 3 years to be precise. And, I lived this scholarship, right? I wrote about it, I talked about it, I was perfecting my essays, I was, thinking about it. And then what its scholarship did when it came through, all of those wishes and dreams and things in my bucket list, all of these dreams and everything just fell in place, right? So it is very important for you to manifest first, to be able to think that life that Shivning will offer you, and eventually it will. So, today, from now, after this session, I want all of you to manifest it first, and inshallah everything will fall into place. And this is, one day I am presenting it, it'll be, tomorrow it'll be you who will be presenting this. So with that, there's one more slide that I want to show before I take on the questions for the session. The British High Commission in Pakistan has requested me to also tell you that they have partnered with the University of Essex. They are offering 2 extra slots to Pakistani students who are pursuing their Masters in Heritage Studies and Climate Studies. There is another partnership that British High Commission Pakistan has made with the University of Birmingham, that is offering another 10 additional scholarships worldwide, and they are particularly welcoming Pakistani students. There is more. You can also apply for fellowships with Shivning. There are 2 currently fellowships that are opened right now, which is the South Asian Journalism Program. It's a 2-month journalism fellowship, and the deadline for this is October 10th. And the second fellowship is Oxford Center for Islamic Studies. It's a 5-month fellowship. Application for that closes on the 5th of November 2024. I will again put some links for you. These are the fellowships that you might want to see and explore. There you go. But yes, that's about it, you guys. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for coming and attending this session. I hope it was worth it. I hope I was able to make sense. I was able to guide you. I was able to, give some method to the madness. Thank you to the organizers, Aisha and everybody else. Love to hear your comments or any questions that you might have. Opening the forum for any questions that I can address. Thank you, guys.
Assalamu alaikum. Am I audible?
Yes. Walaikum assalam.
I'd like to ask a bit about choosing examples. So there's a lot of instances in one's life, especially when you're right in the middle ages, that you think are relevant for any particular question. Some of those examples could be bigger than the others, but is recency of the example more important than the impact of the example? Like, for example, if for example, the biggest achievement of my life happened back in 2011 and 2010 because it was a state level award that was assigned to me or a title that was awarded to me, do I need to mention that and take out sort of space from an example that is much more recent and that could be much more effective, or would it be vice versa? And secondly, with respect to SDGs that you mentioned, sorry, I'll just make it 2-part. The SDGs that you mentioned, do we need to specifically mention or quote the SDG or point out the number of the SDG or which year we're taking it from? Reference it and source it, because that will take up words.
Yes. Sorry, I didn't catch your name.
My name is Habra.
Habra.
Yes.
Oh, all right. So thank you for the questions, Habra. I think these are very relevant questions. So what you can do, I've elaborated on the structure of the essays, right? You start off with the most impactful in your whatever that you think is the most impactful essay, and then the second example that you can do is one of the latest one or one of the newest ones, right? So what you can do is to elaborate 2 examples, give one which you think is the most impactful, and the other one which is the most recent. This is how basically you balance out the impact of those essays, right? So you will have both the essays, which is one is the newest and the other one is the most impactful, right? And for the
Yeah.
second question, the SDGs, yes, you have to precisely mention the SDGs, the number of the SDGs, and you have to mention how does it, how will it fall into the category of your narrative and in line with your goal. So you have to specifically mention those SDGs.
Right. So,
I hope
especially
I've
things that are
answered both of your.
Yes, thank you. Specifically with respect to SDGs, because a lot of fields, primarily in law and the justice sector and the political relations sector, they relate to ongoing scenarios which are somewhat, we have biased opinions, like polar opposites stances exist in this world at the moment. For example, if you take the Palestinian Gaza issue at hand, or the Syrian conflict at hand, or the Ukrainian, would you suggest mentioning examples that sort of relate to these instances, because then you'd have to pick a side, and what if the person reading on the other end is obviously you somehow trigger their human bias, very natural bias.
So basically, the SDGs have to relate to your goal, your career goal. So whatever your career goal is, you have to put those SDGs in line. So I don't know how, like, I didn't get that point where you're saying that, the Palestine issue, how does that come into the picture? Because you're talking about your goals, right? Your midterm and your long-term goals. So I just kind of
I'll just give you a brief example. Like, for example, as a future lawyer, or for example, as a present lawyer who's looking at international work, or international reconciliation between states, or constitutional law, or terrorism related law, or rights of people affected by war, or civilians affected by war, you'd have to pick a side when you're mentioning certain examples of the war, right? We know at this point in time that there are polar opposites of stances, so do you tread along those lines, or do you completely avoid it altogether? Because if not, then you're sort of taking out a huge part of your personality that's sort of defining your entire goal and your long-term purpose.
Okay, so there are two answers to it. One, which is which is a truthful answer, like for you to ensure that and I'd be bluntly honest about it, for you to actually make the cut for the Stevling Scholarship. I don't know how they claim that they're very there are no biases, and there are they don't look at things very it's a very objective application process and selection process, but you never know, right? And it's a very tricky space that you're talking about. So
Yeah.
for you to just be safe with your application, I would advise not to touch upon those topics that, yes, we believe and, we feel that are critical to talk about, just to be safe, right? But having said that, if you personally believe that, this is something that you really want to voice your opinion on and perhaps could add in your application, then feel free to do so. Perhaps, with your inshallah, if you get a scholarship, we will have another evidence in terms of, when they claim that, there is nothing in terms of, they look at things very objectively and not personally. So for you to be on the very safe side, I would advise not to do at this point in time.
Got it. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, Hafsa.
Walaikum salam.
Thank you for such an amazing session. Actually, I am a very initial stage of my application, and I really wanted guidance in selecting universities. I'm really confused that while choosing universities, of course, I'm doing my research that the program that I'm choosing and universities, and as you said that was a great insight, that I need to look up the professors and everything. But I really wanted to be sure about the I'm unclear about the acceptance ratio. Like maybe the universities that I'm applying or preferring to apply, what are the factors that are involved while choosing the universities? If you could please just
Yes.
reflect on that.
So thank you, Ramisha, for your question. I get this question quite a lot of times. So what you do is, for you to be extremely safe with your university choices, what you do is that there are 3 tiers of universities that you will choose. One is going to be the top tier university, where you know that the selection might be a little dicey and you might not be able to make that cut. The second choice is going to be a mid-tier university, which is, not the lowest of the rankings, but somewhere fall in the mid. And then you secure that, and you have high chances of securing that university admission, right? And the third is going to be from one of the lower tier universities. So you'll get admission anyways, right? So after you've had a Chevening scholarship, at least you will have one university admission in hand. Even if you're not getting it from the top tier or the middle tier university, you will surely get it from the lower tier university. So that way you just secure yourself from getting that admission and that unconditional offer from any of the universities.
Thank you so much. It really cleared up. Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes. I'm now clear about it. Thank you so much.
Assalamualaikum, ma'am.
You're welcome. Yes.
Shall I go
Waalaikum
next,
assalam.
because my
How are
question
you?
is very similar to Romisha.
Bataiye. Yes.
Yeah, so hi, this is Majid from India. So,
Ji, Majid.
so I've gone through the instructions regarding the selection of courses, but I wanted to know from you, like, any personal insight on choosing the courses, because the most of the colleges have not started the admission process for 2025 session. So, what should you advise? Like, make a timeline or something, or like there are different procedures. So, how to make a filter of it? Institutions. Like you talked about tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So, like how should they filter out the institutions? And especially, when the applications haven't started for most universities. Thank you.
You're welcome. So Majid, even if the application cycle hasn't started, the university information and the course information, everything is out there. So for instance, if you're looking to pursue your master's in any of the particular fields, you might have to just go and do your research and what sort of universities are offering that particular course, right? And then you shortlist those courses of those universities that are offering that course. And once you've shortlisted those courses, you then perhaps might want to go to QS World Rankings. This is a website that you might want to access and see those rankings or the course rankings, and specifically not the specific university rankings, but the course rankings. Because I know for a fact that people go for university rankings, but you also have to ensure that the course that you want to pursue in any of those universities have a better ranking. So I would really advise you to structure your approach for looking at universities based on the course rankings, right? So if the course ranking of is better than the university ranking, you might as well just want to take up that course. So you have to just type in QS World Rankings, and that's how you try and shortlist the universities that you think are better in ranking in terms of courses that they're offering.
Thank you. That was really helpful.
Is that clear?
By courses, do you mean QS ranking per subject?
Yes.
Subject. The session was quite informative. And thank you so much. You've been helpful in answering my questions from LinkedIn as well. I just wanted to confirm one more thing.
Yeah.
Is it okay if we select similar course in 3 of the universities? Like if I want to choose MSc in Human Resource Management and International Human Resource Management, so if I selected a similar master's course from 3 different universities, so is it okay? Or we have to select some different courses that relates in our 3 options?
No, Rahima, you're right on point. I think this is essentially what everybody needs to do. So you choose one field and you look up for similar courses, right? You can't be, because the narrative that you're putting on your Chevening essays, it has to be coherent. So you can't have 3 different courses. How will you able to make sense, and how will you able to convince the reading committee what exactly do you want to do? So you have to have at least one field in mind and then shortlist those courses. So you're absolutely on track. You're doing the right thing.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I see some raised hands. Serish. Yes.
Yeah.
Walaikum salam. Serish, how are you?
Your session was extremely productive and constructive. So thank you so much. It was so extremely helpful. So I have 2 questions. First one is I have right now I have a pure corporate career. So, if I am writing to build, my long-term goals, so is it necessary to connect that my future impact should be, at public at large?
No, not necessarily, but what you have to do is to make sense, right? So for instance, listen, you ultimately you have to talk about the community and how will you give back to the community. So for instance, in your corporate role, how about you talk how the corporates are giving back by CSR or by sustainability initiatives and so on and so forth. So what you have to do is to basically think of a narrative and then that narrative for the betterment of the communities, because ultimately the scholarship is not for your future development, right? It's for the development of the communities, because you'll be coming back and serving those communities. So you have to, even from the corporate angle, you have to think of how can you actually put that narrative out and basically approach it from a CSR angle, if that makes sense.
Suppose, if I am interesting towards corporate governance, right? So if I'm connected, for the long term goals, if I will be interested to work with SPB or SECP, some sort of, these organization.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So will it make any sense?
Yes, 100%. Because these are ultimately the guys who are working for policy making, right? These are the guys who are making those reforms for corporate governance. So yes, ultimately, directly or indirectly, you are working for the working for the public realm. So it does make sense 100%.
And the another question is in the leadership essay, that part, is it necessary to write, any sort of previous leadership skills which should be connected with the current work experience?
Yes. You can write it.
Okay. And what about, choosing the university? For example, is it necessary that we can choose the university as per the, universities provided in the Shivling application? So all the universities are incorporated in the, application process, or there are very few limited universities which are, mentioned in the application process?
Sorry, come again. I did not get that question.
I'm saying all the UK universities are incorporated for the Shivling scholarships, or there are very limited universities which are incorporated for this process.
No. The entire UK universities are within that Shivling. So most of the universities in the UK are partners with Shivling. There is a certain portal that allows you to look up for a university and see if it's a partner with Shivling. But I will have to look that up and share it with you. Perhaps you might just want to Google it, because there's a certain portal on Shivling that allows you to see what sort of
Yeah, last time I
universities are
remember.
there.
Last time
And
I
most of
remember
the
when I
universities are there.
was. Yeah, last time I remember when I was searching for the universities. So I already shortlisted 3 universities, right? But unfortunately, all those universities were not mentioned on the portal, portal of the Shivling. So
So
then
what
what
you
I
can
did.
do is to write to Shivling. Yes. Yeah. So you have to write to Shivling and say and specifically ask them that these are the universities that are not mentioned in that Shivling portal. And what they do is, based on your query, they might just say, okay, if you apply for this you can apply for this. But you will have to write to Shivling and ensure that whatever the universities that you're applying for are Shivling partner universities, and you have to mention it to them if they're not partners.
Okay, thank you so much.
Hi, ma'am. Thank you so much
You're
for.
welcome.
Hi, ma'am. Thank you so much for this instructive session. I have 3 questions. My
Welcome.
first question is: we have to submit 2 reference letters, right? So, do they need to be from our bachelor's and from our, the course we are choosing specifically from those professors? Or we can, since I'm doing my master's, so can I take my reference letters from my master's professors?
So it could be from either from universities or even from your workplaces. So you could either provide an academic reference or you could also provide a professional reference. So, there's no limit to any of the references that you provide. So there's no condition to the references that you provide. You can provide wherever and whatever from whoever you would want to produce the reference letters.
All right. And my second question is, they have mentioned that you should have 30 to 60 hours per week you can work in, part-time and full-time. My question is, if I'm doing 2-3 jobs and volunteer work at the same time, and my hours are exceeding from the limit they have given me, so is it specific to one job or volunteer work I'm doing, or like collectively I can have maximum of 60 hours per week?
I think you have to collectively have 60 hours per week. So you can't go beyond the working hours limit that they have stated.
All right, that's
So it is a collective. So it's a collective working hour. Yes.
So if I'm doing like one full job at a time and volunteer work and other, something related to this, so
are you talking about when in the UK or over here?
Like if I have to prove my 2 years of work experience or 2800 of work experience, I'm talking about that.
Yeah. So whatever. So if it's an internship or if it's a volunteering opportunity or it's a full-time or a paid full-time or a part-time job, if it is coming up to 2800 hours, then you're fine. You're eligible. It has to be collectively at least 2800 hours and above.
Understandable. And my last question is, I am doing clinical psychology right now, and the field I'm choosing is criminology there. And this is because I have studied one course when I was in USA. I was an exchange student, and I don't have any experience relevant to criminology or anything. So, and I have also watched some videos, and they were telling me like all your essays, 4 essays, should be related to particular theme and should also mention the goals, the field you're choosing. I am confused because I don't have any experience or internship or any course relevant to criminology. So how can I do this in my leadership or networking essay? Because my theme wouldn't be same.
No, so for the leadership and the networking essay, it's not important to mention criminology that you want to study or pursue your master's in. For the leadership and networking essay, you have to elaborate on the examples that you already have. Like for instance, if you're working for for a part-time opportunity, you may want to quote examples from your work experience or even from your school days. It's not important or it's not relevant to quote examples from the field that you're choosing to pursue your master's in.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much.
Hi, Hafsa. Thank you so much for such an insightful session. I have a similar question. I graduated last year, so it's been a year since I've been working. However, I did some jobs and internship while I was studying. So my total working hour does somehow sum up to 2800. Does that work, or do I need to have a post-graduation job experience to be eligible for it?
No, you don't have to have a post-graduation job experience as long as you put in the number of hours and weeks into the portal and it comes to 2800 plus.
Yes.
Working hours, you're fine. You're covered.
Okay. And do they ask like some experience letters to prove it, or what do they like?
Yes.
How do we prove it that we have worked?
So whatever that you're stating within your application, if you're saying that you worked in so and so organization as an intern or as a full-time employee, you would have to give them evidence. So you have to give them employment letters, you have to give them those internship certificates and so on.
Okay. Thank you so much, Hafsa.
You're welcome. I see some raised hands.
Hello, hello, Hafsa. Can you hear me? Thank you so much for a wonderful session. Yeah. This year I couldn't make it to the finalists. I barely made it to the reserve list. I would ask you specifically.
Oh, you made it to the reserve list?
Yeah. I would ask.
That's a huge achievement, just by the way.
Thank you so much.
Very well done. Very well
done. Thank you so much. And
but what happened?
Yes, I'm coming to that. I would ask specifically about a question where I stumbled during the interview, and that is regarding the hardships and the challenges that one may face while in the UK. So I would ask you specifically about that, the challenges which we may face in the UK.
Challenges that you may face in the UK.
Yes.
If you are facing all of the challenges over here in Pakistan, I think your life in the UK would be much smoother than over here in Pakistan. Trust me on that. So no, not as such. I think on a very serious note, I think one of the challenges that I faced when I went there was homesickness, but that was for a month or two when you're actually missing your family and you're not used to living alone. So that is something that you'll face, but that'll fizzle out within 1 or 2 weeks, when 1 or 2 months, when you have friends and you go to universities and you've got a busy schedule. Apart from that, I don't think so. You won't be able to struggle. I don't know what universities are you pursuing for. I was in Cardiff, so we used to have sunny days, but weather is something that used to bother a lot of people, because my friends who were in the University of Manchester, they never saw the sun for 6 months straight, so they were kind of not very happy about it.
Oh.
But apart from that, I don't think that you will face any of these challenges. I don't know.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I see some raised hand. Fatma Javed Zedi, have you raised a hand? Can you tell me what do you want to ask? Okay, Fatma's raised a hand, but she's not saying anything. Rutab, do you want to say?
Yeah, I have a question. When do we have to submit our experience letters? Because in application they are not asking for it. So, what is the timeline when we have to submit?
Evening reference letters.
No.
So there is a timeline.
No. I'm not talking about reference letter. I'm talking about the experience letters, 2,800 of hours of work experience.
So the deadline to submit all the documents is basically the 19th of February. So the documents that need to be uploaded must be uploaded before the 19th of February.
No, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm not clear. Someone asked the question that do we have to submit our experience letters and prove it that we have worked for 28 hours or 2 years of work experience. I'm saying in application they are not asking for it. So, and they don't have mentioned it that we need proof. So, I'm asking when and where we have to submit.
I think there's a separate section on the portal that says that you submit documents or upload documents or something along those lines. You have to upload all the documents over there in that particular section of the portal. But you don't have to prove. You have to write. You have to write the number of hours and number of weeks within that portal, the system where it's actually calculating for you. But apart from that, for the experiences, you just have to produce an experience letter that says that this person has been affiliated with our organization for this many years or whatever. But for the documents to be uploaded, there is going to be a separate section on the portal that lets you or that allows you to upload those documents.
May I add to this question? Because somebody I knew who went to Chevening this year, she also, that's why I asked you, she mentioned that they do not ask for experience letters. They just ask for the experience, but they do not ask you to upload the letters. That's why I wanted to confirm it with you. And she said the same thing. They do not have a space to upload those letters.
There is a space because I remember I did upload it, but I don't know if probably the portal might have changed because it's been 2 years now since I've applied. So if they have given you a portal, anything to upload those documents, I will encourage you to upload those documents. You have to give them as much evidence as possible to make a very solid and robust application. Right?
Okay, thank you.
You're
Okay, first of all, can everyone hear me?
Hi, Fatma. You're inaudible. Can you please speak a little louder?
Okay, great. Hi, Hafsa. So thank you so much for such an insightful and inspiring session. That is so that is so helpful in many ways. So my question is, I'm working currently for a MENA region-based company. So does it, make a negative impact in my application in any way?
Sorry, come again. I did not hear you clearly what you're saying.
Okay, am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay. So I was just mentioning the fact that currently I'm working for a MENA based region company. So does it make any negative impact in my application in any way?
No, not at all. Not at all. No. You can work for wherever you want to. That does not impact your application.
Okay, great.
As long as you're based out of Pakistan, you have a Pakistani passport, you're more than eligible to apply for Shielding. You can work wherever you want to in the world.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Hafsa. Thank you for clearing this out.
Hi, Hafsa.
You're welcome.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Varda. Yes, I can.
First of all, thank you so much for the insightful discussion. So I had a query, like if I'm working somewhere for a contractual position that's going to end around, June 2025. So does this experience count while I'm calculating my 2,800 hours, or is it excluded? Like the experience that I've done or the experiences that I'm currently doing, does that count as well?
No, it has to be your past experiences that need to be calculated and make 2,800 hours. So you can't be giving them future work hours experiences.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Hafsa.
Hi, Amna.
Thank you so much for this informative session. Well, I wanted to ask you if you review Shivning essays.
Very tricky question. Yes, I do take reviews. I still have a couple of essays to review. I am going to take reviews till the end of this month. So if you are already done with writing your essays, I might take a couple of more requests. So because I do also manage a full-time job, so I'm trying to juggle between reviewing essays and maintaining my employership as well. So yeah.
Understandable. So where do we submit you these essays?
You can email it to me. Perhaps I just want to write my email address, or you can reach out to me on my LinkedIn if you have that. I'm just going to give you both. This is my email and LinkedIn. I'm just going to drop it. But yes, you can reach out to me on these channels.
Thank you so much.
Have I answered your question? You're welcome. Anything else, guys, that I can help you with?
Hi, Hafsa.
Hi, Fatima.
So, Hafsa, my question is related to applying to the universities. One of the university that I shortlisted was University of London, but when I went to the website, the window for the intake of September 2025 is not open yet. So what should I do? Like I should consider other alternatives, or should I wait for that? Because I wrote to University of London and they replied that we should wait for a few weeks and then they will open the window, but I'm confused about that. Yeah.
So no, it's completely okay, because I understand that the universities have not opened their admissions as yet for particular courses. What you can do is to do your research about the course, and then you mention it in the Shielding application and in your essays, right? And later on, once you've submitted your Shielding application on the 5th of November, and then once the portal opens for the university, you can start applying. That's not a problem. Because you have to give an unconditional offer towards the mid of 2025. By then you would have an offer letter in hand, right? So you don't have to worry about that at this point in time.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hi, Hafsa. I also have a question.
Yes, Fiza.
So, I have over 6 years of work experience, but I'm currently on a break and not working anywhere. So, I wanted to ask one, how and where can I give the references from? And B, do I need to prove that I'm working somewhere, or will I just be fine with uploading my certificates of job completion from the previous workplaces?
No, that's fine. You can upload your
Experience
past
letters.
experiences. You don't
Okay,
have to
great.
be currently working. And for the reference letters, you might want to reach out to your previous employers and be like, just request them to give you some reference letters. So it should not be a problem.
Somehow the places I was previously working in, one of the companies completely shut down, and one of the companies that I worked in, the whole team got changed because the company got taken over by another third party, and they then slowly had to let the other employees go. So I just wanted to know if it's okay.
So how
I
about
can have
them
experiences.
with an academic
that I want to ask.
experience from your
Okay.
university? Yes, that's
Okay,
doable.
okay. ठीक है. Thank you so much. Thank you.
100%.
Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum.
Hi, Mahi.
So, Hafsa, my question is same along the lines of Fiza. My previous head is not working anymore at the company I worked in. So, what should I do? So, like, she's working at some other school. So, should I like approach her, or should I approach from someone from the previous company? So, what should I do?
No, that's completely fine. So if the person is not a part of your company anymore, but if they can provide a reference letter for you, that's completely fine, because they are going to, in that reference letter, they're going to vouch for you that you were a thorough professional and you've been a part of the company when they were a part of it. So that's completely fine. So even if the person is not a part of your organization, and even then they can provide you with a reference letter, that's fine.
All right. And one more question. I'm at I'm transitioning into a completely new field. It's not I have done engineering. Then I worked as a teacher at a high school. So and now I'm transitioning towards service design. So I have completely understood that leadership skills and relationship building essays are for the past. But how about my future plans? Like, how do I convince them that I'm going to be, I'm going to do something in this field? Like, I don't know how to how to relate all the because for so far what I've done is I have done some certifications, online certifications regarding this new field. So but I don't have practical experience, and the reason why I've chose UK is because service design is a field which is booming right now. American universities teach it in a very different way than the UK ones, and according to my research, UK one is more more close to what we are practicing in Pakistan right now. So, should I mention this that I have done certifications from American universities, and now I'm looking for some practical experience, or what should I do? Thank you so much.
Maheen, from what I understood is that you are saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you're saying that you don't have prior experience to be able to elaborate the thing that you want to pursue, or the course that you want to pursue in your essays, right? This is what you're saying.
Yeah, and now I'm saying that I don't have practical experience,
so you don't have any prior
teaching
experience.
Yeah, teaching experience, and it is kind of related to service design, that I have portrayed my teaching career as as a part of service design. So what I'm right now, what I'm asking is, how do I convince okay, so I'll be very honest. I have carried out this whole application thing this year, like 2024 session, just to check that whether universities are accepting me or not in this field. So I have got admission in two of the topmost universities in the field of service design. One was UAL and the other was Royal College of Arts. So
Mahin, your voice is breaking. Your voice is breaking so bad. I am unable to understand. But let me help you. Give some perspective on this.
all right.
What you have to do basically is in your leadership and in your networking essay, you don't have to talk about your previous experiences, but you have to, and it could be any of the previous experiences, whether you can give leadership examples even from your school or college days. So you don't have to specifically mention your experience within that particular field to be able to write an essay, right? In the fourth essay, which is going to be the post study career plan, this is where you will have to elaborate and justify why do you want to pursue this course and how will you be able to help the people in Pakistan with that particular course, right? So even if you don't have much experience in the course that you want to pursue, you just have to build a very strong narrative around it for the reading committee to be convinced that this is the person who's going to come back and make a change after this course is pursued by her.
Oh, all right. That makes sense. Thank you so much, Hafsa.
I hope I have. You're welcome.
Hi Hafsa, I have a question which is an extension of Mahin's initial question. Basically, the employers that I was previously working for are no longer working with the company that we were in together, and now since they're not working there, तो उनका official email address भी वो नहीं होगा, but they're working somewhere else on senior positions. So how can I link and prove it in a way कि वो मेरे पिछली company में भी managers थे and they're vouching for the right candidate?
So they've left the company that you worked for.
Yeah, but they're working somewhere else. Yeah,
that's fine. You have that sort of you had that professional working relationship with them, right? So it does not matter. As long as they're able to provide you with references, that's fine. Even if they've switched companies.
So the references that we're gonna upload, वो official email addresses तो नहीं ना उनके डालने होंगे कि उससे कोई link ना बनता हुआ नजर आए, because अगर उनकी दूसरी company और मेरी कोई और
I don't think so. No, you can provide his current. What you have to do is to provide an email address that he is approachable on. So, for instance, if they want to do, the Evening people want to do your due diligence, that person needs to be, he's achievable. He is contactable. So
that they will be, but वो मुझे था कि official email address उनका उस company के नाम से नहीं होगा. Maybe they have a Gmail address now.
No.
That's not a problem. Okay.
No, that's
ठीक
not
है.
that.
ठीक है. And one more question, please. मुझे किसी ने recommend किया था that since I've done bachelor's BBA from LSE, I was open for courses like international marketing, international businesses, and entrepreneurship. तो मुझे किसी ने recommend किया था कि since we have to prove that we'll come back and serve the country in a way that it contributes because of our achievements and all, so I shouldn't be opting for international or such courses क्योंकि वो शायद points में इतना favorable नहीं show होगा. Is that true?
No, I don't think so. नहीं. I know.
ठीक है. Okay. ठीक है. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hi, Hafsa.
You're welcome. Hi, Salia.
So I really want to ask about the interview, like how we prepare about it, any tips or tricks, like how can we go about it?
Acha, so the reason why I did not cover the interview, because of course the presentation was going too long, but just in a nutshell, I'd want to say a couple of things around the interview. So the interview is going to be based on your application and on the 4 essays that you've submitted, right? So they are going to check whether this individual who has submitted these essays, is he the person, or is he or she the person behind writing those essays? So they are going to, so for instance, if you have maybe stated 2 examples within your essays, perhaps they might want to say, okay, tell us a time when you were working for this, and state another example within that organization, just to ensure that you are the person behind those essays and you have crafted those essays. So what I would advise for the interview is to go through your essays over and over and over again. The statistics, the numbers that you're putting in your essays have to be on your fingertips, because they might ask you the same question and then you have to be ready with the answer. And also prepare for one extra example or a recent example that you can quote during that interview, right? But most of the questions that they will ask you is going to be from your application and from those 4 essays that you've written.
So they don't ask questions related to our course, like we have selected certain course and they ask about professional questions related to our course.
What happens is that they are going to ask questions relevant to the 4 essays. So for instance, if you have mentioned a course, they might say, okay, why in particular would you want to pursue this course? And then you can basically talk about the same narrative that you put across in your essays. And likewise for your post-study career goal, they may say that this is what you've mentioned in your application, that you want to join so and so organization after coming back, but could you please explain why? So it is going to be around your application and around your essays. So you just have to be thoroughly prepared with your essays for the interview. One more thing that they do ask is why do you choose Chevening? Why did you choose Chevening? There are other scholarships as well. So I would advise you to work on your answer to that, because don't give them cliched answer, it's a highly coveted scholarship, this, that, and the other, because this is something that that they know already. So you might as well want to talk about people who have pursued your course, who have pursued your course during their Chevening scholarship, and then you might want to name them, like this person, like for instance, if you're doing public policy, you might want to say, okay, I'm inspired by XYZ, who also went on a Chevening scholarship from Pakistan, and now they're with the government of Sindh, and making policy reforms, working on policy reforms, and this, that, and the other. So this is how you might want to get creative, but you will have to do your research.
Can I go next? If the question
yes, Shaista.
Salha has been answered. Yeah, okay, I'll go with my question. First of all, thank you very much, Hafsa. This has been really helpful and a great session. So
you're most welcome.
Yeah, so all we have talked about and all these things have been revolving around the 4 essays, and I know they are important. Even myself, I've been working on my essays. I had applied last year, and it's like even in my dreams, I keep writing my essays, and I just wanted to ask if there is a screening of the resume as well, like if there is any kind of maybe a suggestion on how we should structure our resume, because they connect, right? If we have a structured resume, then we can also write good essays. I mean, the first 2 at least. So is there any kind of specific structure that we should choose or go with for our resume writing?
No, Shaista, I don't think so. They don't really look at the resume from a very critical lens. As long as your resume is updated from the time you've applied for the Chevening scholarship, I think you're fine and you're covered. So there's no particular style of writing a resume.
Yeah, okay, that's great. And for the essays, for the first 2 especially, so should we go with 2 examples or 3 is better?
So there's no particular formula to it.
Okay.
But what I would advise you to at least give them 2 examples. And in an ideal scenario, what you need to do is to give them one old example of leadership or of any of leadership or networking or whatever essays you are writing about. and one recent example. But choose those examples that you think are the most impactful ones. So if your your old examples are not that impactful, or even your recent examples are not that impactful, and you think that the two examples that you're quoting are from your past experiences and it's been a while, I would advise you to go with the most impactful ones, even if they're old.
Okay. And then if we have we have a story and we can narrate it in an order, like we started like this and we did this, that.
Yes.
And then that did not have an immediate impact, but that in the long run has impact. And this is the results that I've been able to achieve. That is also fine, right?
Yes, as long as you're able to elaborate on the result of your action, you'd be fine. So, if you're able to elaborate your examples by putting them within the STAR approach, within the STAR method, you'd be fine.
Yeah. And also,
but
but
the ideal situation for an essay, I would advise, is for you to give two examples, one recent and one past. And yes. And with a beginning and end.
And then moving from leadership to the networking, they can connect, right? I mean, whatever leadership roles I've been, I can connect them to the networks I've built, and then what I got to do with those networks and how they helped me achieve something in my career or in
that's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
That's fine. Yes.
That's not a repetition.
No, that's not repetition. That is a different perspective or lens that you are approaching the essays from, right? So one is from the leadership and one is from the networking. Networking, you will talk about the networking skills, and in the leadership essay, you'll talk about your leadership skills. So these are two different ambits altogether.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Hafsa. This has been helpful.
You're most welcome, Shaista. Any other questions?
Yes, Hafsa, since we're talking about the essays, I'd just like to chime in and ask, since you've mentioned and elaborated on your presentation regarding putting in numerical impact and sort of giving percentages and showing the kind of difference that you're making, what about those examples where you're engaged in social work or social welfare, which cannot be quantified? For example, you're helping out this one particular case and you're taking it pro bono. You can't really... if you're, for example, getting somebody off the cuffs or getting an innocent out, on bail or something of the sort, this cannot be quantified and you can't provide any numbers for it. What to do? Do we skip these kind of examples?
But even then, you must have made. No, but you must have made some sort of progress on that. So, for instance, if you're teaching somebody who was in, like, for instance, in a central jail, but you can elaborate on the results that you were able to teach two individuals, like, right, you taught them in terms of capacity building, you taught them soft skills, you taught them this, you taught them that. So it not necessarily has to be quantifiable, but it has to show that impact of whatever that your actions that you were taking.
Right. So I'm not talking about teaching with to such people. I'm talking about representing those people. So, for example, a case is still ongoing. You don't really have a decision in hand to show any kind of impact, but you do know that in your heart that nobody else was representing this particular person because they couldn't afford. But you're providing them access to justice by providing them free of cost representation and sort of helping them along the way. So it's a huge thing that you're doing, but then there are no numbers to quote for it. So do we skip these kind of examples, or how to quantify unquantifiable things like these?
You can skip these sort of examples where you're unable to give them specific results or specific context, because they are looking at from a third person perspective. They need to know your story. So even if you're helping them out, but it's not giving any sort of outcome as we speak, then you might have to look at other examples that you can actively and effectively communicate to them that, you know, this is what you have done, and as a leader you've made a change. So they're looking for leadership examples that can actually showcase your leadership skills.
Right, got it. And also, just to add on to that, if somebody is in stuck between two boats, like for example the corporate side and the social welfare side, which is more, you know, personally passion oriented, and it also connects more relevantly to the long term goal. क्या ऐसा होता है कि application के अंदर you show both these personalities or facets of your life, or does it make you look confused? Because see, in order to pursue this social welfare pro bono side, the kitchen needs to be running. So corporate side को अगर आप सिर्फ as a fuel ले रहे हैं, in order to, you know, push in funds into your social welfare work, how should you reflect that in the application?
No, that is fine. That is fine. As long as you're able to make sense, as long as you're able to justify it by giving a very solid narrative and rationale behind it, I think we're fine. So I have worked in the development and CSR, and, you know, I was doing a lot of pro bono things, but I was also working for corporate sector. So I did a lot of mix and matches for my application as well. So that's fine.
Right. Perfect. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Can I go first, please?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for answering these questions so patiently. I have a question about the 2 years time that we have to spend in Pakistan. So meanwhile, like, can't we go anywhere else for visit visa, or like just for some time, or do we have to stay in Pakistan 24/7 for 2 years?
No, you can go on visit visa. That's fine. Like, you have to return to your country to work. You cannot be based out of a country for 2 whole years, but you can always go and go on a holiday, do whatever you want to. Just for 2 years, you just have to be based out of Pakistan after you return.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Hafsa. So my question is that I'm a recent graduate with 1 year of professional experience, right? But I have been involved in various types of work. I have, you know, vast experience in social work on pro bono basis.
Yes.
So would that count?
As long as you're able to provide them evidence that you worked in the form of any volunteering opportunity, in the form of any internship that you might have taken, as long as you're able to give them proof of that, and if that is that makes up 2,800 hours plus of your work experience, then you're fine. But you have to give them evidence that you've worked.
What would be that evidence?
Volunteering program. You might have to write to anywhere that you might have worked. You have to write to them to give you a letter that states that, you know, this individual has been a volunteer for this many years, and, you know, he's worked in the firm for you know, for a couple of hours every day or something along those lines. So you have to give them proof.
All right. So basically, I have worked more than 5,000 hours in my experience, right? I have worked more than 60 hours per week, and I can give the evidence as well. But
yes, as long as you're able to provide with the evidence, then it should be fine.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Hafsa. Thank you for this session. I have a quick question. Can you hear me? Okay. So I've recently developed the interest I want to go for. For example, I did marketing in my BBA, and now I want to pursue business analytics. So this particular field does not directly link to my previous course study. And in the essay where you have to mention, you know, like the 3 universities in the UK, and you have to link them with your previous study course. Is that important, or you can just link them with your experience?
No, that's not important. You can link them with your post-study career plan, but you have to have a very solid rationale, right? You have to build a very solid rationale within your essays to be able to justify that.
As in why you've taken this course and how it will make an impact.
Yes,
Okay.
100%.
Okay, and another question for the networking essay as well as leadership essay. So, like, can we have similar examples, but like with the different lens? Like, how was this in the leadership role, and how does it links with my networking, or do we need to have separate examples for both the essays?
No, that's fine, because like you've rightly mentioned that these are going to be written from a completely different lenses altogether, right?
Yeah.
So as long as you are putting leadership examples within the leadership realm and putting your narrative across within the leadership perspective, you're fine.
Okay.
And this is exactly what you want to do and repeat for the networking essay.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Are we done with the question and answers? I think we've gone way beyond the time that that was there, but really nice having all of you guys and some very nice questions and very interesting questions. If
Thank
there
you so
are
much
no
for your
more
time,
questions,
Hafsa. I'm sure you have spent quite a good time on this, and thank you so much for taking the initiative. We appreciate that.
no, thank you guys for attending this. This has made my time on the time that I have put in putting this presentation across absolutely worth it. So thank you for attending this, and thank you for listening so attentively. Really appreciate you guys. And if there's anything that you might want to ask later on after this session, I have shared my LinkedIn profile address with you. You might as well might want to drop in any questions that you might have. Please bear with me for a day or two, because I also manage a full-time job. So I am trying to accommodate as many requests as possible. So yes.
And are we done with all the questions?
I guess so, yes. But if there are any questions, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'll try to respond to them ASAP.
Okay. And I think that's a wrap up. Thank you so much, Hafsa, for taking out time and sharing all the valuable insights, and mostly for being so patient and answering all the questions. And thank you all of you for being the wonderful audience. And so I would say stay connected on our social media platforms for the upcoming events. And good luck, and I look forward to seeing all of you in the future events. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for your time. Have a good weekend. I'll see you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Good
you.
luck to your
Bye.
application.
Thank you. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you, Hafsa. Thanks.
You're welcome, Fatma. Allah Hafiz.